Welcome to the Well Off Podcast, where the goal is to motivate, inspire, and share success principles. I'm your host, George Masri. Mark Yataco is a seasoned general contractor and a real estate investor from Toronto. He focuses on helping investors scale in multifamily through tailored renovations, sourcing the right material, and avoiding overlooked turnover pitfalls. On this episode, we talked about the life cycle of renos and why that's something you should be considering when you're picking really cheap material versus a higher end material. The smart water valves and how those are coming in handy when it comes to avoiding leaks in your units. Value add strategies, things they do, like, for example, splitting 2-bedroom units into 1-bedroom units and adding to the suite mix, how they're choosing between a lipstick reno versus a full reno, and then things to look for in a contract when it comes to working with a contractor. So I hope you guys will enjoy the episode. Again, make sure to share this with a friend or family member, post it on social media, tag us. My Instagram handle is welloffx, so you can always reach out to me there if you have any questions. And if you want to talk a little bit about multi-unit investing, if you're looking to get started in that, you have questions, I'd be more than happy to help you out. So always feel free to reach out to me, and you can always book a call on welloff.ca. There's a spot there for a 15-minute call. So I'm happy to discuss these things with you, and I hope you'll enjoy the episode. All right, I'm here with Mark Yataco. This is the first time I have you on the podcast, but as you informed me, you know everybody that I know. Welcome to the show. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks for having me, George. I listen to your podcast quite often, and yeah, the world's small. You quickly realize it, so...
You know, I kind of figured you listened to my podcast because you called me George and not Georges. So,
oh, really? Is that the...
Yeah, I figured you probably have heard me somewhere, so that's good. I like to start off by asking about your childhood. So tell me a bit about where you grew up and some memories you have.
I grew up in the GTA, immigrant parents that moved from South America over to Canada. My mom ran a cleaning company. My dad he worked in construction in Toronto when he came in the 70s, I believe, and then became a production manager for a fireplace company. Just regular childhood. My parents were pretty strict. But my mom was always that, like, you could always do something with yourself, like always believe in yourself and, do greater things, which is pretty cool. And she's always pushed me, and I think she's a key person to my success.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to that. I feel like my mom was the same. She always kind of believed in me, always told me you're going to be really successful, even though, there was no kind of proof that was ever going to happen, but she always instilled that confidence.
Mindset, right? It's cool to see mindset, like how it can really change you and like push you to think, even though you can't see it, right? You got to go there, kind of like Christopher Columbus sailed across the ocean kind of thing, right?
Exactly.
Pretty interesting.
Do you have any like specific memories? Did you grow up in Brampton or you grew up somewhere else?
I grew up in Mississauga.
Okay.
Like Meadowville area.
Yeah. Any particular memories of that time or of that area when you were a kid?
I remember it redeveloping like crazy. I remember when we lived there and we first moved in there, it was like you could see from Meadowville to Air Mills Town Center, you could see it in the background, like in the skyline, and now you could not see. All you see is houses, right? It's a lot of development, which is kind of cool to see.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. I didn't have a magical upbringing, I guess. I feel like it was pretty normal. Mm-hmm. I remember always doing renos around the house with my parents. Like my dad was very handsy, and that was kind of our thing to help him out with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. So tell me about your journey, like how you got involved with all these different investors, how you kind of got into renovating properties and all that.
Yeah, for sure. So, I started renovating projects because, like my dad, he had that secure job, production manager, big fireplace manufacturing company, got bought out by the teachers union, and they redeployed that business model and ripped everything and moved it all overseas, and they did... obviously created a better profitability for that business. And with that, my dad got laid off. And because he was handy from when he first came into Toronto, he started doing kind of like friends and family basement renos, bathroom renos. And I was working at the bank at the time. And he asked me, hey, like, do you want to make a couple extra bucks? And I've always been a hustler. I remember selling Cutco knives. I give them credit. They had a pretty fun sales program, and I was definitely one of the moments in my life where I realized I was a sales guy. Sorry, I'll get back to my story. And my dad, we did a backsplash on the weekend, and I helped him out. It was a few hours. I'm pretty handy with my hand. Like, I'm really good at contracting. And he gave me my cut, and I was like, this is my cut. And he gave me, I think it was like $500 at the time. And for me to make that money working at, a bank was like 2 days, 3 days worth of work. And I was like, this was just a few hours.
Yeah.
And I really loved it, and I enjoyed working with my hands, and I was good at it. And I'm a sales kind of person, so it's easy to talk to clients and kind of like assess their needs. Like, I'm very like, okay, what do you need? How can I help you? How do I help make you get you a better product? Like, what do you need versus kind of like, the used car salesman approach where I'm just trying to sell you something just to sell you something. Was always like, okay, what do you need? How do I help you get the best version of what the output product is? And then I did more and more renos, and then I quit my job and I went full time, and I was doing projects with my dad. So I became like my dad's sales guy. So he would go and bring me, he would be the old beard, and I would sell the clients on like, you can put, spray foam insulation and like all like Detra and all the different stuff that was out there in the market. I did a lot of retail clients' homes. And then I met this guy, Kyle, and we were in the Army together, and that's how we met. My wife now, who was in the Army with us at the time, she was like, you guys should talk. Like, you guys are the same personality, just different spaces, but I think you guys would connect well together. And one Army night, we got together, we started chatting. He was offering me a painting job. I was thinking he was a real estate agent, and I was like, what? How could I possibly help you? I'm a general contractor. And he was like, I got a building in Hamilton that I want you to go reno. I've never been to Hamilton. I've never taken on a building. I've done like multiple projects and stuff like that, but not such a big project all at once. And then we went there, we worked out like how the project would work out, and I started really paying attention to how he was doing these renovations, because it's completely different than like the why. I was so used to doing like the value add, like, oh, this is better because of waterproofing, or like a lot of like taking what retail marketers get is like very marketing and like salesy. And then I started really paying attention to what he needed, because it's a different person, an investor and a retailer, like a person's house. They love their kitchen and they're emotional and passionate with their kitchen, where investors like yourself, you guys are, budget focused, maintenance focused, life cycle focused. And I started really understanding how to build out this little niche. And that's kind of like how I got started in the rental properties. And we did one building, then two, then three, then four. And then fast forward 15 years later, we're doing a lot of work out there, and all multifamily focused. We don't do a lot of residential clients. We do all investor focused stuff.
Yeah.
All of the products we use, we're very in tune with the MLI Select program. Like maintenance programs, again, like life cycles of renovations to kind of help investors get the best out of their project.
So let's talk about that a little bit. How do investors get the best out of their project? You talked about kind of being budget friendly, life cycle, some of these things. So can you dive into that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. Product selection is you think about budget and you're like, okay, I want the cheapest floor because renters only need floors. But you also need like, okay, well, how long do you plan on keeping this project? When I was doing flipping, you could just buy the cheapest stuff, because you're not going to hang on to that project. But a lot of how in real estate investing is happening now is everybody's keeping everything, and you're going to hold it for the long term. Especially on the multifamily builds, you're going to be doing multiple units. So if you bought that really cheap floor at Home Depot because it was on sale, it was like a truckload sale, and that color will be there at that moment, but the next time you go back for it, it won't be there anymore. Mm-hmm. So on a 20-unit building, 30-unit building, having like to replace floors, and you don't know where you bought that floor or the color, and like that starts to become costly. Sure, it was cheap up front, but now that stuff starts to become costly. Even the repairability of floors, like we'll recommend like a luxury vinyl, like loose lay flooring versus the click, which is super popular in the big box stores, because click goes down really nice and easy, but when it gets damaged and you got to repair it, it's very difficult to repair without having to unclick to the piece that's damaged. So in the middle of the room, you got to unclick half of the room.
Yeah.
With the products that we use, it's a glue down application. It looks exactly like the vinyl click, except I can put a screw into the piece that's damaged, lift up that piece, go get another piece, and just put it back in its place. I'll be in and out in like 5 minutes, which is good for you because that means as an investor, you can hire, your handyman can go fix that. Like the guy that you have, while you're there, fix that 5 minutes for and go clean up the garbage or take out, I don't know, go check on any maintenance stuff that you need to do as well. Like, so it's a lot simpler. And then that will obviously reduce your ongoing costs because there's like your upfront costs and then your ongoing costs, especially when you're dealing with apartment buildings. Same thing, we'll do like soft close hinges and drawer slides and everything like that where there's different mechanisms in the kitchens. And there's some stuff that, yes, it is soft close, but it doesn't operate smoothly. It's very like cheaply made. A lot of the IKEA stuff, it doesn't last. It doesn't like last the time, the lifetime, right, of a 20-year hold. 15-year hold, 10-year hold, right? There's a lot of cycles. And the last thing you want to be doing is every time you have a tenant move out, you don't want to be spending any money re-renovating it because you cheaped out the first time, right? And then that will start to compound and add up. And then your initial upfront savings was great at the time, but it's going to cost you.
So are you, with the IKEA stuff, are you talking about the actual cabinets and the doors, or are you talking about the hinges and
the hardware? A lot of it's hardware. A lot of it's hardware driven. I think, IKEA's obviously they're designed to get a good bang for your buck. I mean, you can obviously upgrade everything, but it was just an example, like big box stores and stuff like that. They're just selling you today. They're not selling the life cycle of a real estate investor.
Yeah.
For cabinets.
Got it. Okay. So flooring, cabinets, any other tips to, or maybe just some feedback on cheap life or things that have a low life cycle versus, like certain upgrades you can make to last you longer?
Lighting, right? Everybody's really, LED lights are the way to go. And what's coming out now, and it's super trendy, is the all-in-one LED light fixtures, which are great. They look beautiful. In theory,
you're talking about the ones without the bulbs, right?
Correct. Yeah, without the bulbs, the ones that are built in, right?
You just plug it in and that's it.
Yeah. So that, but to put it in a fixture, and if it ever gets damaged, and damage doesn't necessarily mean faulty product is a type of damage, but it could be fire damage, it could be like water damage. Tenant upstairs has a leak, your light fixture gets damaged because of that leak. Now you got to replace it. You can't send a tenant to just replace the light bulb. You got to send an electrician or an experienced handyman or contractor to repair that. So a lot of the stuff that we focus on is creating a spec for each individual investor, and we'll build out like the products, and we'll recommend products like, make sure that it's easy to replace or repair, because the last thing a contractor like me wants to do is to go back to your unit and be like, hey, Mark, remember you repaired my unit a year ago? You did the whole thing. Now I got this like light fixture that's damaged. Can you come back and change it? I don't want to do that small little change. So I want to build something for you so you're not paying us the higher cost because of our experience to do the repair. I'm trying to build out stuff for you that you can send any of your handyman, even your leasing agent could probably change the light bulb.
Yeah.
We're working on a video series right now too for a lot of our specs with our products and materials, so that you can kind of share that with your tenants, so that like how to check if dishwashers working, like just kind of troubleshooting guides and doing all the replacement and repairabilities of the products that we recommend. Another big one that I do, it's not like an easy thing, but it's like we do smart water valves.
Yeah, I've heard of those.
In the units. So we have this product, and it's a smart water valve. You put it on the main valve. You can put them in other valves, like if you want to separate, like for units. For apartment buildings, we'll do a valve per unit, because when you have a bunch of apartments, it works, or even in like Airbnbs. And one of the things that it does, it's got these like sensor pucks that you can kind of put them anywhere you want, where you think water is going to hit. And if you get a cap full of water and it spills on that area, it will trigger the sensor and the water valve will shut off immediately. It'll take like 3 seconds to shut off, versus, hey, my roof is caved in because the unit upstairs is right. And then you're going to go, okay, let me call my plumber. hey plumber, I have a call, and like all that time is ticking,
And the
and all
plumber is
that.
like, oh, I can't make it
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Sorry.
20 minutes. Are you gonna call another guy or the emergency guy? Yeah, we're 45 minutes out. We're 10 minutes
Yeah.
out. We're five.
If
But
you're lucky, sometimes they'll be like, hey, I'm fully booked today. Sorry, I can't be there.
before you even get that conversation like to the actual time, that like that back and forth conversation has happened versus this system I'm really behind is the tenant's going to call you or you're going to call the tenant because you're going to have an alert on your phone, or it can go to an email like a specific. So if you have a property manager, it will go to their email inbox and it will alert them like the puck head. You can label them. So it'll say dishwasher, unit 3, leak detected. And then you can call that tenant and be like, hey, your water's off. Can you check? And then you can open it and close it from your phone. It's incredible. There's no ongoing service fee. You just need an active internet connection.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like that I'm looking for investors, especially newer ones, to get, the best out of their product.
Sure.
And their renovation, right? Like that stuff is crucial. Like I was watching a video of a guy the other day, and he had a tenant move out and left the crack of the window open. It was in the middle of the winter, and the whole unit flooded.
Yeah.
And like,
oh, he had a burst pipe?
yeah, burst pipe.
Yeah.
And then so $500 would have saved that, I don't know, $10,000-$20,000 worth of repair and lost revenue too, right? Like there's also the repair is one thing, but like not having to be able to re-rent that unit is also another cost, right?
Oh, for sure. You touched on LED lights. Now, what are your thoughts on in a multi-unit specifically, the lights with the sensor that basically turns on when somebody walks by it instead of having it, on all the time or whatnot?
That stuff, I think, honestly, like the cost savings on those lights, like the LED is the massive saving, right? Like you're going, like 80 to 90% efficiency versus an incandescent bulb, and maybe like 40 to 30% better than a fluorescent bulb. But like that intermittent, like on off stuff, it's not, I would say, I think it's like 2 or 3%. I don't know what the exact percentage is, but it's super significantly lower as a savings for it. In the common areas, it's probably good. Like you'll reap some of the savings. The only downfall to it is if that sensor ever goes, well, now you have a whole row of lights that like
right
you run into that problem. So it's a good idea, I guess, but it's not.
I think
not at, like the better bang is just going to LED.
Yeah, because I think on the box, on the like light bulb box, it says that it costs you like $2 a year to keep the light on all the time. So I remember I kind of like just did the math, and it made sense to just put all the lights and leave them on. It's not a big deal. It's definitely a lot cheaper than having the other light bulbs. But
the incandescent.
Yeah. All right. So aside from that, how else are you helping investors? First of all, are you take on projects? You're a general contractor, so you take on everything. You're the one. You're going to hire all the trades, like the sub trades, I guess, or subcontractors.
Yeah. So we have a mix of both in our company. So we have like in-house guys that are our core groups, and then we have our internal subs that they've just never wanted to join in-house, and they always wanted to run their own business and kind of be a free bird, but they definitely do 90% of their work for us. We have in-house plumbers, and we work with in-house electricians. So that we do everything in-house, and we control all of that stuff. And then some of the stuff we don't do as often, we just have good other companies that we partner with. But part of the renos is that we do is like I said, we'll build out a spec for the client. So like if you buy a building, you're doing 10 units, all 10 aren't going to come up on the same time. I mean, ideally they do, but typically they don't. And I'll build your spec, and we'll save it in our system, and we'll have your cookie cutter price for your whole building. Because when we go, one of the services we offer when we're purchasing a building, I'll walk through the building with you, and I will give you my value add strategies that we've used with many of the other bigger investors that we work with. And I'll help you determine your goal, right? Like value add, whether you're trying to add longevity, depending on your strategy for this investment. If you're trying to hit the MLI Select program, like I can guide you through some of the stuff that I know internally just from past projects that we've worked on, and we'll help guide you on the reno cost, and I'll give you a real reno cost broken out. And then once, if you're happy with all of that sort of stuff, and we've worked it out, then the next time you have another reno, you're just like, hey, Mark, 106 is up for reno. And that's all the conversation we have to have. Our budget's in place, all the materials in place, the kitchen layouts in place. You just say go, and I go. And then that, I mean, who doesn't want that? That's
Sure.
a big thing that we provide for investors and helping them, like I said, value add, adding suites. Like we did a project in Welland where we took a 12-unit building and added an additional 5 units to it so that you...
Another floor?
No, it was just we separated internalized units and created more spaces.
Let's talk about that. Okay, so break this down for me. You have a 12 unit. Are they like large units? I would assume yes.
Yeah, there were some large 2-bedroom units, and then we ended up splitting them into 1-bedrooms and bachelors.
Okay. And what was the benefit? I guess, I mean, it would obviously lead to a higher cash flow in that case, but then also you have more turnover. So what was the thought process behind that, if you can just kind of walk us through it?
I think the client just wanted to add more value to the building by increasing the profitability of the building, or if they rented it just as 2 bedrooms, like I think it was 6 2-bedrooms that we split up, if they rented those, adding a 1-bedroom and a bachelor created more value. And then with that, we also layered on the MLI Select program. So we did heat pump mini splits, we got rid of all the gas in the building, and switched everything to a more energy efficient setup, and then they were able to pull 95% loan to value on that project.
Amazing. 95%. I didn't even realize you can go with the MLI Select.
Yes.
Yeah, you can go probably a little higher. Okay. So you took that 2-bedroom unit, you probably separated the 1-bedroom and maybe like a little bit of space. Did you have to take down all the walls and rebuild it, or did you work with the existing layout?
We worked like the way it was set up worked. Like we basically turned 1-bedroom into the other kitchen, and then it was like the bigger, we took the larger bedroom and the bathroom and we built a wall there, so that side became like kind of like a hotel suite, I guess you could say. And then the other side, the living room, kitchen, that just kind of converted into a bedroom and a kitchen, living room.
And you had to add a bathroom in that.
And we had
side.
to add 1 bathroom on that one side.
Yeah.
And because of our experience, we were able to lay that out right away and able to offer that option for the client. And then that's how they were able to jump on that opportunity.
Cool. Yeah, a bit earlier you were talking about walking through with clients when they're about to buy a building and walk through the value add strategies that you work with, that you've done with other investors in the past. Can you touch on those value add strategies a little bit? Like what would be some examples?
Adding units, right? Converting storage lockers or being able to split units and changing 2-bedroom. Like if you can rent a 2-bedroom for $2,000 and you can rent a bachelor and a 1-bedroom for $2,500, $500 more is $500 more, right?
Yeah.
And then obviously that adds to your building value. So those are like key components. Laundry in suites in the laundries, like we come up with constantly strategies on how we can add in-suite laundries into all of the units, so you can get rid of your common area laundry, which means you can turn that common area laundry into another unit. Same with like getting rid of the gas and some of the hot water tanks, moving them to more efficient systems. Same thing, you free up room that you would be taking up with utilities and cost, and now turning it into a money-making machine.
Yeah, gotcha. What would be the approximate cost of splitting a 2-bedroom unit? Like if you could just give us a ballpark figure.
Oh, that's going to be tough. That's tough. This is kind of like where expertise and stuff like that layers in, because
it depends on how this scope. Like if you're ripping down all the walls and redoing the floor plan, that's a little bit different than just working with the existing floor plan and adding a kitchen here and a bathroom there, right?
No, it can even go deeper than that, because when you look at the building, if the building power consumption is only slotted for 12 and now you're going to 18, well, now you got to increase
the service.
Yeah. And if that area in the neighborhood's service, like their transformers are already full, you got to buy a new transformer.
You got to upgrade
it. And the same thing with the water and the drains. Like it can kind of like, it really depends on where it is from an energy use perspective, right? Like it can get really complicated and costly, which is difficult to explain to investors that stuff actually happens.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, you just rip it out, or like kind of
okay.
Like you're saying,
well,
right?
assume in a perfect world, everything was already set up for the the additional or units, or let's just say you did it to one unit instead of doing it to 6 units, like in that example, what would be just kind of like the construction cost?
For like a ballpark, one of the systems I kind of use as a range, like I hate doing the budget like ranges because I mean, if I'm going to do a range or like, can you just give me an estimate? I'm going to estimate in my favor always and not the investor. But typically you can do like a $25 square foot strategy, $50 a square foot strategy, or $75 a square foot strategy. And that'll determine your finishes and kind of like how much value add you're putting. Are we doing in-suite laundries? You know, you're gonna probably be in that 75 range. If you're not, if you're doing basic like white melamine kitchens, you know, your cheap 99-cent laminate, then you're gonna be in that closer to that $25 square foot range.
Sure.
And that's just a number.
I got it.
It's complicated and you know, and that's when we build out budgets for our clients, we're building out budgets, and I'm including, you know, engineering fees, the MLI Select engineer fees, you know, the mechanical fees, the architect fees, replacing a transformer, because we've done that. Like, I'm trying to layer on all those fees so that when we give you a budget, your working budget is a number that we're going from downward and not going from upward, where like other contractors who haven't experienced it or just trying to get the job, they're going to come in with their bottom number.
Yeah. With some of these bigger investors that you work with, do you generally, how often are you doing like a full gut on a unit versus just a lipstick or like, you know, kind of a minor, a partial renovation?
I guess really it depends on the investor and their strategy. A lot of the guys that are doing it, if it's, you know, like a fresh building and their goal is to, you know, add as much value to that building, we'll do a lot of guts. And I mean, like a gut would just be the kitchen and the bathroom would be a gut. And then everything else, for the most part, will be lipstick and makeup. I should say lipstick and makeup, but just replace the floor and you know, freshen up the colors and the paint. But the rest will kind of stay the same.
You're talking about baseboards and trim that'll
for
probably
that stuff,
stay.
like especially now, like I'm seeing it more and more, just based on the amount of people that need to rent versus, I would say, 5 years ago. You don't really need to put in that much value add stuff from a unit perspective because there's such a high demand. Where I would say like a lot of the investors are now reducing the amount of stuff like pot lights we used to do all the time. I don't do pot lights anymore in apartment buildings because you're not going to get $600 more in rent, where before it really helped kind of do that, or when vacancy rates were much higher and then you really needed to stand out from the competition. Now it's not so much. You still need to have a nice unit to get the higher rents, like to achieve the top rents, but you don't need to go, you know, all the way and like go super high end. Like we've done a couple test pilots with some of the investors where we'll do like half of the budget or 3/4 of the budget, and they'll only get like $100 less in rent, and that's totally worth going 3/4 of the budget.
Yeah, for sure, it makes sense. Yeah, like pot lights, but yeah, I guess even baseboards and stuff like that, it's not the end of the world.
If you got flat baseboards, sure, they're older, they're a little bit, you know, like
the little 2.5 inch.
Yeah, but you know what? They're like flat stock baseboard. We sell a lot of. It's because it's easy to clean, it's easy to repair. Like your maintenance guy doesn't have to like, you know, recreate the curvatures on like the Colonial baseboard. Like Colonial was super popular back in the day, but it's in a pain in the butt to repair. Just stuff like that. Like there's no need for as much anymore, I would say, than today. Even like other companies, they're just like sanding and restaining floors, and they're getting the rents. They're getting the rents that they need to achieve their targets, and that's at the end of the day the goal, right? It's not to get the nicest units, it's to get the best performing units for the least amount of money, and that's the name of the game for everyone, right?
Yeah, 100%. And then I guess if you're laying the floor on top of the existing one and keeping the baseboard, are you just putting like a quarter round or something on the bottom?
So with loose lay, it's that like how the system works is the pressure of it being tightly put onto each other is what kind of holds it in. So there's almost like we just take off like the one baseboard on the one side of the wall and everything gets pushed up really tightly against it, and we'll put the last one in place. And the glue kind of helps hold it together. So as long as the guys are really being pretty neat, like you don't have to leave that gap like you do with laminate or like hardwood.
Okay, so it'll press right up against
right
the
up against
baseboard, so you won't really be able to tell that, it's not like under it or whatever.
Yeah, if you have really awkward walls and stuff like that, sometimes we'll have to add a quarter round, but I mean, cost is pretty low on adding quarter round versus ripping out and redoing your entire baseboard.
Of course, yeah, gotcha. Okay, before we started recording, you were telling me a bit about your personal investments. So you are investing in Welland and St. Catharines. You want to dive into that a little bit? What kind of?
Sure, yeah. Like prior to the pandemic, we got involved in a deal. It was a monster house, like a really big house in the corner in Welland, and we converted that into a fourplex. Cool. And we did like a burst strategy. We got 100% out of the deal, and it's cash flowing $1,800 a month.
Nice.
Probably a lot less now, but
yeah.
when I was receiving money from our quarterly distributions, we were cash flowing $1,800 a month profitably, which was great. Now I think it's probably evened off a little bit, but I mean it's as we're turning over more tenants, that's going to pick back up because rents are going up. For sure. So that was a big project. We renovated top to bottom, and it was nice because we were obviously the contractor on the project. And then the other project that we are involved in is a house and a parking lot in the corner of St. Catharines on Queenston, and we purchased that project. And then we're going through the site plan approvals now, and we're going to be knocking down that house and turning it into a 12-unit apartment building.
Cool.
And that'll be our first, like, from the ground up development that I do personally to do it. And it's just it's different kinks. Like, it's like I've poured foundation, I've like done framing, and we've done all the internal infrastructure. It's just some of the other layers, like the surveying, the geotech, involving all of the different utility companies. When you're starting to do a development, there's a lot of more outside moving pieces that you kind of aren't in control of, and you just kind of like trying to appease everybody so that they give you the site plan approval, right? Like the landscape for the city of St. Catharines has their own idea of what things should look like, and the parking has their own group, and then you got to try to work with all of them to meet their requirements as best as possible. So it's an interesting process, a little bit more complicated, but once it's gone, there's good juice at the end.
Yeah. Just kind of going back to that Welland project, converting to a fourplex. How long did that take, start to finish?
6 months.
6 months, really, with permit. Maybe you got a head start on permits before you guys closed.
So yeah, when we do projects, even with apartment buildings and stuff like that, we'll bring in our architectural team and we'll measure out the whole building. Yeah. And we'll do all the material takeoffs, the pricing. We'll get all the paperwork ready. If we can get the owner to agree and let us apply for the permit in their name while it's closing, that obviously starts that clock ticking, and that's the kind of goal that we do from a reno perspective, so that you want to hit the ground running and not start when you get there. But it's not always the case. At this juncture, we were able to capitalize on that opportunity, and it was great. So.
Do you have an in-house architect, or is that something you...
Yeah, so I have an architect. He's it's my godson. He was working for a larger firm, pre-COVID, and once COVID hit and stuff like that, I was always trying to convince him to come over to this side, and I was saying, like, there's a lot of architectural work in the investor side, and it's good because architects, they love to draw, but they don't actually build. So I brought him in on the reno side, and he was a project manager, and he hated it. He's not a construction kind of personality. Yeah. So he hated it every moment of it, but he really started to understand how things get put together and not how things are drawn. And then he started to see all of the layers and the problems with it. And then so now Henry from Rojas Empire of Designs, he's my go-to guy, and he works with us in our office. And he takes care of investors with a good mindset, and even a lot of his drawings, if you're my client, he'll flip me his drawings as he's building them too. So I put my eyes on it, and I'll say, hey man, can you just reshuffle this so that we're not creating this problem or adding on these costs, because they're trying to create the best layout, not necessarily the best construction build, right?
Sure. That's a common thing with a lot of like designers, architects. They're also not always mindful of budget as much. They're more like, oh, this is the best. This is going to create the best outcome. But there's a lot of other
Yeah.
things to
No,
consider.
I agree. One thing, we always talk about power teams when we're talking about real estate investing. You got to get a good agent, good contractor, good financing guy, good working partner. And then, but like when you get to construction, like you need a good contractor, and a good contractor, like that aspect has its own team, like
Yeah.
having a good engineer, having a good architect, and having the good constructor, and then them all working together, which doesn't really happen in our industry, and them communicating all together will create, like you're saying, like the best product on all of the different facets that it takes to construct a building, versus just one guy just saying like, it's a really nice room, I drew it the best,
Yeah.
and then now I'm stuck trying to build it and explaining to you why our budget just doubled, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so because we have that little kind of cool little like teamwork, I guess, setup with them, like we're honestly able to create phenomenal projects and at like great costs too.
Yeah, for sure. What's the future going to be like for you? What are you aiming to do? Are you going to continue to grow your contracting business, or do you see yourself investing more? Tell me a bit about that.
Honestly, I'm doing a lot of stuff. So I have a Talk About Investing platform where we do podcasts, and we're on social media and Instagram. And a lot of the stuff we focus on is all of the renovation aspects. I think that I really enjoy. I think it's a really big missing piece. I mean, I've been to a million investor meetups, and I've been a part of a lot of different investor programs, and I've learned a whole bunch of stuff. And everybody just says, get a good contractor. And even if you went and you did a project and you're running the numbers, how are you getting your price on the renovations, right? Like you're guessing. And even if you got like 4 or 5 contractors to bid on the project, none of the quotes are the same. Well, like one contractor is bidding you like super cheap, one guy's really high. It's always a guess. And I'm gonna be speaking to that. I'm sharing like all of our paperwork that we've built as a renovation company to our followers, and kind of giving them like an edge on how it is. I recently did a video on how I break down quotes that are not even my quotes, and how I would try to interpret them to make apples to apples sense to them. And one was a quote where like, the guy just gave a number and he just kind of did a summary of everything. One guy had a breakdown of everything, and then one guy kind of did like a hybrid version of both. And then I look at the deposits, like what the terms are, and I kind of like break out and try to create apples to apples comparison with, because there's no real standard in the contracting world. So that's something I think the market's missing, and that's what I'm talking a lot about. And that I think is going to be my focus. My younger brother pretty much runs the contracting company. I mean, it's cookie cutter. It's built with when we deal with investors, it's always, rinse and repeat. That's what we all aim to do, and we don't want to complicate the wheel. And, I'll get involved if it's a complicated project, or during the initial stages, right? Like help build up the setup and how we're going to execute the project. And then after that, our team we've been doing this for over 15 years, so we're pretty experienced, and they just pick up the torch and run it. And then more recently, we created a sister company, and it is called Cabinets to Kitchens. And it is a kitchen manufacturing company and a wholesaling company where we purchase products for real estate investors, like everything outside of the construction. So once the guys are done drywall, plaster, everything else you see, like the stuff you care about, the paint, the floor, the doors, the trim, the handles, the smart valves, the kitchens, the faucets, the toilets, right? We use 3-liter low flow toilets. All of those sort of products we carry in-house and manage for a lot of our investors. And we do a turnkey solution. Like I said, we'll build out the spec, and then you just call us and let us know the next unit's ready. Whether my reno company is doing the project or not, we'll have all of your products in stock, and we try to use the same products. I'm not trying to carry every product. I'm trying to use the good, long, bulletproof type products that investors are looking for. So that's, I think I prefer the education piece and the Talk About Investing podcast and stuff. I think that's where my goal is. I'm always going to be investing, and I don't know.
Yeah.
That's That's what I got. I don't
You
know.
got a lot going on. When people are, let's say somebody's a newer investor, they're just starting to get into renovations or that sort of thing. What should they look out for when they're working with a contractor? What would be some like key things to have in the contract or to look for?
Yeah, there's a bunch. I mean, especially this day and age, the problem with contracting in the industry, not all contractors, but in the industry is the barrier to entry. Anybody can be a contractor. Tomorrow you can show up with a tool belt and a helmet and some tools and you're a contractor. There's no like real system in place to vet the person. So I typically narrow down contractors into three categories. There's the small contractor, right? The guy that operates out of his van. And then the mid-sized contractor that has, a couple of crews set up. And then the established contractor that has a physical location. You can go visit them. And those are the three guys. So with the smaller guys, they're good. There's nothing wrong with running a small operation. Just I would be more worried about high deposits from the smaller guy, because if he disappears and changes his phone number, it's going to be hard to chase. The bigger guy, if he asks for a bigger deposit, well, unless he's going to like pick up his 10,000 square foot showroom or whatever and disappear overnight, it's going to be a lot harder to do, and it's a lot easier to find those kind of guys. So like deposits is a key thing. The structure of payment. I hate percentage-based payments. One of the things I talk about this in one of my videos is how to coach the contractor to bid the same way to you with every contractor that you bid. So you control the conversation and be like, hey, can you break out the quote like this? And if you're telling every contractor to bid like that, then it helps with the apples to apples comparison. But percentage based stuff, especially high percentages up front and low percentages on the back. For us, we break out by milestones. Demolition has a price, drywall has a price, installation has a price. That way, especially a new investor, you can walk into a room and see if it's fully drywalled or not. And if it is, well, then you can pay the drywall payment. There's no you don't need to be an expert, right? And it'll allow you to kind of navigate through those issues. I'm trying to think of what another one would be. Guys with brand new tools are another, it's okay to have some new tools, but the guy that shows up with everything brand new, especially the lower brand tools, I don't want to call it any names of branding, but a lower brand tool that isn't designed for long-term work, those are kind of red flags for sure.
Yeah, cool. So payment schedules, that's important. Deposit, depending on who you're working with, and then also little red flags like brand new tools. But that was a good point about that person that's operating out of their van versus having a showroom. It makes sense that you can chase that guy at the showroom, whereas you don't know where that guy in the van's going to be.
No, for sure. And they're going to have different overheads, right? So the guy who has a showroom, you could expect his costs to be higher, but his operating costs are higher. And when you need a warranty, he's going to be there. Right? The guy in the little van, he might not be there, right? So he could offer you a 10-year warranty, and so could the other guy, but who's going to be there in 10 years, right? Who's been there for 10 years? Those are the kind of things that you need to really look out for, right? And then being able to go, obviously the guys that are ready to start tomorrow, those guys are worrisome.
Right.
Why would you be ready to start tomorrow? Unless they got a good explanation on why, but you should be able to go see their recent project or a project that they're on. If you want to come and take a look of any of my projects, I can take you to a tour around Hamilton. We'll be there all day. There's many projects that we're working on, and we're always working on stuff. So
yeah, cool.
So that's it. I mean, I think those are the big ones.
Yeah. So we touched on a lot of different things. Do you feel like there's anything that we may have missed that's important that you want to share, or anything of that sort?
No, I don't know. That's actually a tough question. I came in with a bunch of ideas of what we were going to talk about, but
we covered a lot of different things.
It's difficult, for sure. No, I mean, having a good contractor and you're a real estate investor focused contractor, right? That's an important thing. You want a guy who knows the industry, who's an investor themselves, and understands your end goals, right? When we build out a quote, I don't build out a quote, I build out a budget. Because if you want to save 10 grand in budget, well, let's review the budget and figure out where we can shave 10 grand. Maybe we don't do quartz countertops. Maybe we do laminate. Maybe we get rid of the pot lights, right? I work a working budget so that I'm giving you options versus, you have a contractor that just gives you a giant thing and a big number on the bottom. You can only say yes or no to that guy. And for us, we break out all of the different items, and we're turnkey. We'll take care of you every step along the way, right? Like from pre-purchasing the building, doing all the permits and the paperwork, getting your design drawings, creating your specs so that you understand the life cycle of properties. Especially, I will ask you about like the different investment strategies that you have, because if you're going to flip it, well, then you don't need to spend all this extra money on stuff that is going to last, because you're not going to hang on to it for a very long time, right? Yeah. So it's just somebody who understands that versus contractors that they're just there to do the job and keep their eyes down and just get paid, right? Like that's not the guy you want to be working with.
For sure. Very cool. Just to kind of finish things off, do you want to tell people what services you offer and how they can reach you?
Sure. Talk about investing, TACOBOUT investing. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, all of that.
What are you doing on TikTok?
Well, we just repost a lot of the videos and reels, a lot of reels for the most part. I mean, we've done a couple of dances and stuff like that, but I don't feel like a lot of the investors are really following that on their TikTok For You pages. The services we offer, we do consulting for purchasing buildings. We'll build out reno budgets, material budgets, so that when you're ready to start your project, you can hire us or use our quotes against other contractors and get them to bid against us. One of the nice things that we've done is, because we've created such an economies of scale, like we're manufacturing our own kitchens, we're able to come in at a super competitive price and still make more margins than the guy that's charging you more, right? Because those guys, they're not manufacturing their kitchens, so there's another layer of costs that you as the investor are going to end up paying through that. So we build out the material spec, like I said, and we do all of the contracting work as well, and we have the in-house architectural team to guide you through the permits and all of that sort of crazy headaches that come along with just assuming a building, right? Yeah, very cool. All
right, Mark, thank you for coming by. I know it was a bit of a trek, although not that bad. You live in Brampton, so do I. So anyway, appreciate you coming by, and thank you for sharing all this stuff, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Well Off Podcast. If you enjoy the show, then I'd really appreciate if you left us a review on iTunes and let us know your thoughts. In order for us to get a larger audience, it's really important to have reviews, so your support is extremely appreciated. And also, don't forget to share the podcast with your friends and family. Until next time, I'm George Masri. Have a great day.